A healthy Trevor Story. Garrett Crochet joining the club. Rafael Devers hopefully having a big season. Join me on today's Lockdown Red Sox for a complete 2025 roster breakdown.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut, Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. By the way, my last name is actually Maljanian, but I still say Hurlbut because it's more recognizable and people are still getting used to the new last name. So just so there's no confusion, that is not hyphenated. It is Maljanian, but I do have Hurlbut in parentheses on my graphic here for those of you watching on YouTube, as you can see. But I'm here to talk about all things going on with the Boston Red Sox Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And it's free. So you have no choice but to continue to check it out because there's really no excuse when you can get it entirely for free. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the show. Lots of things surrounding the Boston Red Sox going into the 2025 season. Are guys going to be healthy? Are they going to be able to make a competitive run this upcoming season? Are we concerned about the offense? I did talk about on yesterday's show the Red Sox offense heading into 2025 if the roster remains as stands. And I do have some more quick news on Alex Bregman. Nothing concrete, but just that the Red Sox and some other interested teams are offering him deals that are for less years, but where he's making a little bit more money per year, which I think is right up the Red Sox alley. They just don't want to commit to a long-term deal with him because of the fact that they have this young talent coming up. So they are technically still in the running, but I'm not getting my hopes up super high. And also another exciting update is I have officially been approved as a credentialed media member for the Worcester Red Sox heading into 2025. So expect some exciting, fun interviews on the show moving forward with guys like Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, and Christian Campbell, among others. So stay tuned for that as we get closer to the season starting, which is right around the corner. Pitchers and catchers report next week, which is incredibly exciting. So on today's show, I thought it would be nice to do a Red Sox roster breakdown / review of guys who are coming back from last year, guys who they added this offseason, and some of the potential prospects that could come up, just so we can feel prepared for what's to come with this team. So starting with the position players. So when it comes to that, you have the obvious choice at first base, which is Triston Casas. He is your everyday first baseman. I'm hoping for big things from him this year. I'm hoping to see a breakout season for him to be able to come back and bounce back from being injured for most of the season last year and come back better than ever and say, I'm healthy, I'm ready to go, and I want to have a big year. Because Casas had a great rookie year, and then unfortunately that was halted last year due to him getting injured. So I have high expectations for him going into this new season. Hopefully he can take care of business offensively and be one of the key contributors at the plate for the Red Sox. Now, second base gets a little bit interesting because you have Vaughn Grissom, who presumably is penciled in as a starting second baseman right now. Now, the reason that gets complicated is because the Alex Bregman situation is still up in the air. If the Red Sox end up signing him, he likely would play second base because you're not going to kick Trevor Story out of his position. Technically, you could move Trevor Story back to second, but that would overcomplicate things even more. Trevor Story primarily now is here to play shortstop until Marcelo Meyer is ready to come up to the majors. So presumably, if Alex Bregman comes, he would play second base and Devers would stay at third. Or if they don't feel like Bregman's capable of moving to second, then they try to work out a situation where Devers moves to DH, but then that becomes complicated with Yoshida. So that's another situation to talk about for another day. But presumably saying they don't add Alex Bregman, then you can have Vaughn Grissom play second base. But the thing with Grissom is that he's still pretty unproven in Major League Baseball. He hasn't gotten a lot of reps at the major league level. So it's really hard to say for sure confidently that he could be a good second baseman to start the season, because you have Christian Campbell, who's one of the top prospects in all of baseball right now, who can play both in the infield and the outfield, but is knocking on the door to the majors because he's moved through the Red Sox system very quickly, and he could come up potentially and play second base. So Vaughn Grissom is not guaranteed the spot right now. A lot is going to be determined in spring training. Is Vaughn Grissom going to be able to step up in spring training? Is Campbell going to be able to step up in spring training? Which one of them is going to have a strong spring? Because that, to me, is going to be the player that the Red Sox decide to go with come opening day. So that's still a position that's a question mark right now, is which of those two young players is it going to be that starts the season at second base? Is it going to be Grissom? Is it going to be Campbell? Still have yet to be determined. Then you go over to shortstop, and you do have Trevor Story, who presumably will be the everyday shortstop. Now, obviously, that could change a little bit if they want to get Cedar Rafaela some more reps at shortstop, because he does play both at shortstop and in the outfield, but they did mention they want to play him primarily at center field to take advantage of his defense, because Rafaela has remarkable defense. He definitely needs to get better at the plate, but from a defensive standpoint, he's pretty incredible. So they want to be able to put him in a position where his defense can be maximized, and right now the outfield is where that would be. So you have him. So presumably Story would be the shortstop, and if you're having Rafaela play primarily in the outfield, then you need to move some things around, which again is a conversation for another day. But presumably Trevor Story at shortstop. Then you throw David Hamilton in there, a guy who can provide a little bit of depth at either shortstop or second base. He's a guy who kind of alternated between those roles in 2024 and had a little bit of an elevated role with this Red Sox team due to injuries. When Trevor Story went down, he was one of several players who got increased playing time during the season. So if you want to work him in, he could play at either second base or shortstop, and presumably those would be when the respective second baseman or shortstop needs a day off. You could work him in there. But the reason David Hamilton is nice to have in the Red Sox lineup is because he has speed. He's one of the fastest guys on the roster. He was hitting in the 2-hole when he was playing regularly in 2024. So you had Jarren Duran and David Hamilton as that 1-2 punch, because if they got on base, they both had speed. So the chances of them being able to work their way around the bases and score were very high. So having them hit in the lineup before Devers or somebody of that capacity makes a lot of sense. And then Cedar Rafaela is the other speedy player on the roster that contributed out of the 9-hole. So David Hamilton's speed is definitely something to consider. And if they want to continue to work him into the lineup more regularly, that's a possibility. So that's one of those players who we could see make some appearances in 2025. But I think it would kind of have to be right place at the right time for him. If somebody gets injured or can't play consistently, then he would be the next man up type of thing, because he'd be the guy that the Red Sox want to rely on to be able to at least put some pressure on opposing pitchers. Then you have at third base, Devers, obviously, the third baseman. You have Craig Breslow, who has come out and said multiple times, Rafael Devers is our third baseman. There is no question about it, because there were rumors going around for a portion of this offseason that the Red Sox were thinking about considering moving Devers off of third base, and Breslow kind of shut down those rumors. I mean, they'll have no choice but to reevaluate something with the infield if they were to acquire Alex Bregman. But as of right now, Devers is no doubt the starting third baseman. And we also can't forget about a guy who served a lot of value last year in Romy Gonzalez. He played a little bit of third base. He played a little bit of the middle infield, kind of bounced around and was used as a utility infielder and played kind of where the Red Sox needed him to play. And he was a guy who the Red Sox could rely on to get some hits. He would get on base, and he was a guy who came up big in a lot of pinch hit situations too, and a guy who the Red Sox really enjoyed having around because he was pretty productive at the plate. So I definitely would like to see and would be open to him getting some more opportunities in 2025 because he's a guy who for sure showed a lot of potential last year. And I'm looking forward to seeing the way that he can provide value as that utility infielder. Again, I would imagine that's the role they would use him in once again this year, is kind of being used in the position in the infield in which the Red Sox need him to be at the time. And to round out the infield, the catching situation, you have Connor Wong, who is most obviously the starting catcher. And I talked about this on yesterday's show, kind of the depth chart for the Red Sox at catcher and what the storyline is going to be heading into spring training in that regard, because the Red Sox agreed to / acquired a few different catchers this offseason. And a lot of that is for depth because since Kyle Teal was somebody they traded away when they acquired Garrett Crochet, they kind of had a hole to fill at catcher because for the longest time, the obvious tandem was going to be Connor Wong and Kyle Teal as the two catchers for the Red Sox up at the major league level. But that became less and less obvious that was going to be the case as the Red Sox started to open up a little bit more about how Teal isn't necessarily unmovable this offseason. And then sure enough, they traded him in the Garrett Crochet trade. So now people are wondering who is going to be the backup catcher behind Connor Wong. And that's definitely something for the Red Sox to explore. They have Carlos Narvaez, who they brought in this offseason. They also have Blake Sable, who they brought in from the San Francisco Giants. Both of those two guys are viable options that could end up serving as the backup catcher to Connor Wong, but we'll have to see how they perform in the spring because whoever doesn't perform as well in the spring is going to end up staying in the minors to work with the pitchers down there. So that's a big storyline and an unknown heading into the 2025 season is what is the catching tandem going to look like? Who are they going to couple Connor Wong with? And honestly, the fact that they traded Kyle Teal says a lot to me about the fact that they believe in Connor Wong. It shows that they have a lot of faith in him to be a reliable catcher moving forward for this Red Sox team. It shows that he's the guy that they feel is the go-to at that position. Defensively, he still needs work, but he showed a lot of improvement at the plate over the last couple of years. So I think the Red Sox really do believe in him and his ability to be that number one catcher because people assumed that once Teal got called up, he was going to be the number one catcher with Connor Wong as the backup, but now that's no longer an option. So it definitely sends a message to me that they believe in Connor Wong and his breakthrough. Will that breakthrough continue to happen in 2025? It's definitely something I'm going to be monitoring. But coming up, I'm going to be breaking down the outfield for the Red Sox. That is definitely a very stacked one at the moment. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, Prize Picks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 players' projections, and if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. Pair that with one more correct pick and you're cashing out. This week, I'm looking at the board and selecting more for Travis Kelce on receiving yards and more for a quarterback's passing yardage. What I love most, fast, safe withdrawals. When I win, my cash is in my account in as little as 15 minutes. Check out the promos tab to tail any of the super sweet Millie winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Prize Picks is so much fun, and it's a creative way to make different picks and be accurate and allow yourself to feel good about the money that you're putting down because you can win lots of money and get instant payouts. So don't forget to just use that code LOCKEDONMLB when you download the app so that you can not miss out on getting that instant $50. I promise you, your life is 100% about to change. In looking ahead to 2025, the Red Sox roster right now definitely has talent. It definitely has the capability of being a team that for sure should make the playoffs as long as everybody's healthy. Offensively, I'm definitely concerned a little bit about the lack of power in the lineup right now, but still time to acquire somebody if possible. But one part of the roster that definitely is not lacking is the outfield. The Red Sox have an absolutely stacked outfield heading into the season, and it truly gives me hope for the future of the Boston Red Sox organization because you can look at their depth in all aspects of their roster, and pitching is not an area where they have the most depth, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But you can at least look at the outfield situation and say, wow, the Red Sox have a good one. So in right field, presumably is going to be Buehler. Now, I talked about him a lot this offseason because he was somebody who I thought could make sense for the Red Sox to trade if they were looking to bring back some good pitching in return. Abreu's value is really high right now because he had a solid rookie season in 2024. So if the Red Sox did want to trade him rather than risking his value going down a little bit if he does struggle in 2025, this would have been the offseason to do it. Doesn't seem like they are going to do that. So you have Buehler Abreu, who's going to play in the outfield, presumably on opening day in right. Then in left field, presumably Jarren Duran is going to start there because the Red Sox already said Cedar Rafaela, who I talked about before, is likely to be the starting center fielder so that they can maximize his defense. So they would move Duran over to left, who played a lot of center field in 2024. And I don't really disagree with that. Duran has speed, so he was able to play deep in the Red Sox center field a lot and take advantage of that setup at Fenway. But you look at Rafaela and just how good his defensive ranks are that you have to give him that opportunity to play in a really tough center field at Fenway. And those three players together in the outfield could be a really deadly combination. We've already seen what each of them can do. Rafaela needs to get better offensively, but between Duran, who's the most versatile player on the roster in terms of his speed, his plus defense, his extremely plus offense, and then Buehler Abreu, who had a great season at the plate too. That's a solid group of young talent in the outfield that the Red Sox can continue to build around. Now you do have Rob Refsnyder, who's another outfielder who's kind of used in less cases, but he's a guy who the Red Sox do put in when it's a lefty on the mound a lot because he does hit well against lefties. So you might see him play sometimes in the outfield to give one of these guys a break. And the thing that I find to be underappreciated about him a little bit is just his accessibility. Refsnyder really is flexible in terms of where he can play in the outfield. He doesn't have the best defense, but you can pretty much stick him in any of those spots if you need to give somebody a break. But offensively, he provides a lot of value, and he's been a consistent hitter. He has never been the best hitter on the team, but he's always been one of the most consistent, and his numbers aren't even bad either. So I'm a big fan of Refsnyder, especially because he's a veteran who can help lead in the clubhouse with a team full of a bunch of young players. So let's not forget about him being out there. And then there's Yoshida, who technically his position is an outfielder, but the Red Sox really switched him over to primarily a full-time DH in 2024. He does not play good defense. They tried that experiment in 2023 and it didn't go well with him. So the Red Sox decided they wanted to move him to the designated hitter role. And in that role in 2024, he hit pretty well. I mean, he definitely has his ups and downs and definitely still some things that he could improve on in terms of his consistency, but he's reliable enough in the DH role to where if he's going to be sticking around, they can make it work. I mean, I was hoping they would be able to find a trade partner for him this offseason, but it's tough because nobody wants to take on the contract that he has. So that just is what it is. If he's going to be here, at least they can find a reliable role for him. And that reliable role is for him to continue to be hitting in the DH spot and not really playing in the field. So that's kind of your makeup of what you have for the outfield. But now it becomes complex when you think about Roman Anthony, a guy who I've talked about extensively on this podcast and is in AAA right now and is the number 2 overall prospect in baseball. He used to be the number 1 prospect in baseball, but has recently moved to number 2. And he is going to be special. The Red Sox really highly regard him as such a top prospect that the entirety of Major League Baseball knows about, and all eyes have been on him for a while. He's really making a splash in the Red Sox system, and he's going to get an opportunity to play in the Red Sox outfield at some point soon. Is that going to be in 2025? We don't know for sure. It depends where they see his progress. And a scenario that I could see happening is if he's playing really well in AAA and Buehler Abreu continues to play well at the major league level, then maybe they trade Abreu midway through the season and call up Roman Anthony because they feel like he's ready. But maybe they didn't want to trade Buehler Abreu at this point because they didn't want to take the risk of calling Anthony up just yet and then him not being completely ready. And then they're kind of stuck for a bit waiting until he is ready. So maybe they wanted him to start the season in AAA so that there's not as much pressure on him, see how he continues to develop there. And if partway through the season, he's continuing to impress numbers wise and he's showing no signs of slowing down, then maybe you go and you trade Abreu, and then you call up Anthony to be that next outfielder. So then you're looking at an outfield of Jarren Duran, Cedar Rafaela, and Roman Anthony. I mean, that's unfair to opposing teams. That's just a bunch of athletic kids who are hungry and want to win and are versatile and can go out there and win games for the Boston Red Sox. That, to me, I think is what they envision to be the future of the outfield. I just think they might feel like Anthony needs some more time in AAA before he gets the opportunity to be called up. So we'll have to see what happens with him. But the Red Sox have a completely stacked outfield right now that I know I personally am excited to follow. And coming up, I'm going to be going over the pitching depth because the Red Sox definitely have struggled in the pitching category the last few seasons. So that's going to be something that's going to be very important for their success in 2025. So you won't want to miss that. Attending NFL playoff games is an unforgettable experience that brings fans together. I love attending playoff games because it allows me to connect with other fans. The atmosphere is electric, and it's just a great time. I remember the excitement and energy of a Patriots playoff game I attended during the Brady era, and let me tell you, it was an absolute blast. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I recently used Game Time Picks to find tickets for an upcoming NFL playoff game. Browsing through the deals was simple, and I found great value for all kinds of seats around the venue. The Super Deal was especially impressive, offering the best value for the event. The app's features like seat views before you buy and all-in pricing with no surprise fees at checkout made the experience smooth and reliable. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee gave me peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I love Game Time because they really don't lie when they say they guarantee lower prices than other ticketing vendors. I literally don't remember the last time I used any other ticketing vendor besides Game Time. So if you want to attend any live event for cheaper than what you're used to seeing, head to Game Time today because I promise you, you will see a difference and it's pretty astounding. On today's show, I've been going over and examining the Red Sox roster heading into 2025 and giving a breakdown of who's on the team and the potential future of the Red Sox. And you can't look at the team without looking at the pitching staff. And the Red Sox did do some work to improve the pitching staff this year, most notably by acquiring starting pitcher Garrett Crochet from the White Sox. And although they did have to pay a pretty steep price by giving away some talented prospects, that is what you have to do if you want to win. And the Red Sox have one of the best farm systems in baseball now for a reason. And that reason is so they can pull off making trades like that. So you have Garrett Crochet, who presumably is going to be the ace of the future for the Red Sox. Got to get an extension done with him. That's mandatory at this point so that he can be a guy who can contribute for years to come. So you have Garrett Crochet. You have Tanner Houck, who showed a lot of improvement in 2024 in terms of his growth and development because the Red Sox really pushed him to throw more innings than he had been used to before. And I think that's going to pay dividends for him moving forward because he's a guy who the Red Sox really trust to be able to get the job done. He was the guy in 2024 who was the most reliable starter that the Red Sox had. And he was the guy that I always knew was going to go out there and be able to take care of business consistently. So he's another guy I'm looking forward to seeing in 2025. Then you have Walker Buehler, who the Red Sox also acquired this offseason, signed him on a 1-year deal. There are risks with him because he has had Tommy John surgery twice. So it's tough for players to bounce back after that. But he'll have no choice but to pitch well this year to guarantee another year either with the Red Sox or elsewhere. And he looked lights out in the World Series. I mean, completely shoved in the playoffs in general, but especially in the World Series. So if we can get that version of him carried over into 2025, this could end up being the best offseason signing, is what the Red Sox did by signing Walker Buehler. So there's definitely lots of potential there. It's a low risk, high reward type of signing in the regard of if he doesn't pitch well, they just don't have to bring him back the next year. Then you have Brayan Bello, who had his struggles in 2024, definitely in the first half of the season where he was trying to approach his pitching arsenal in the way that Andrew Bailey wanted him to, cutting out the fastballs and using more off-speed pitches. And he found that to be a struggle for him. So in the second half of the season, he started implementing his fastball more, and it allowed for him to be able to pitch better. And we saw great improvement from him in the second half. So if he could carry over what we saw from him in the second half into next season, then I can imagine we're going to see a lot better version of Bello in 2025, who definitely has a ton of potential to be a number 2 starter even for this team if he pitches at his best. Then you have Lucas Giolito, who's returning after being gone all of last season with an injury. He is ready to go. I got to hear him speak at Fenway Fest, and he talked a lot about what he's been doing this offseason to get himself back on track and prepare. And he is ready. He said he missed pitching so much last year. He's excited to pitch at Fenway for the home crowd. So I think he's somebody who isn't getting enough credit right now necessarily for what he could do in the Red Sox rotation. So I'm really looking forward to seeing his potential. The Red Sox acquired enough pitchers this offseason to where there's no pressure on Giolito to be a high-end starter for this team. But if he can provide innings and pitch consistently at a decent level, then he's doing his job and he's totally fine. And if the Red Sox go with a 6-man rotation, then you still have Cutter Crawford, who had a problem with home runs last year, gave up quite a few of them, but generally was able to keep his ERA at a respectable number. I don't have a ton of confidence in Crawford's ability to keep up with where Tanner Houck is at necessarily, but I do like the direction he's on in terms of his development and what we could see from him in 2025. So I'd be interested in seeing if the Red Sox do in fact decide to go with that 6-man rotation, because he's somebody who could make a huge difference out of the Red Sox starting rotation. Then you have guys who are going to be presumably pitching out of the bullpen in Quinn Priester, who's a guy who the Red Sox traded for at the trade deadline last year. He could be a starting pitcher, but the Red Sox don't really have room for him in the rotation right now. But he's somebody to keep an eye on as we head towards the second half of the season, because say, for example, Lucas Giolito isn't pitching well in the first half, or Cutter Crawford, or really any of these guys, and they feel like those guys need a rest or need to go down to AAA for a bit, expect Quinn Priester to be a name that you see that could get called up to pitch in the rotation, or Richard Fitz, who made a couple starts for the Red Sox last year and was pretty impressive. I would not be surprised if either of those guys are kind of that next man up, because then you also have Patrick Sandoval, who the Red Sox acquired this offseason too, who's going to miss the entirety of the first half of the season due to recovering from an injury, but will be ready to go in the second half. So he's somebody that the Red Sox are hoping to use for some spot starts and maybe also out of the bullpen, kind of figuring out where he fits best. So he's another notable name in the Red Sox pitching staff. Then you have Garrett Whitlock, who will be also returning, who missed the majority of the season last year with an injury. The Red Sox have played around with him as a starter and as a reliever, but they've made it clear that at this point now, they want to throw him out of the bullpen. So he's going to be a guy who can provide big contributions, hopefully, as a Red Sox reliever in 2025, along with Liam Hendriks, who the Red Sox potentially could make the closer. He's a guy who the Red Sox have been highly anticipating coming in pitching. He's been through a lot in his career. He's shown resilience. He's shown the strong ability to overcome obstacles. So I'm really excited to watch him pitch because I think he's going to have a big bounce back year this year. They don't really know exactly what role they're going to put him in yet, but they'll have to see how things go for spring training. Then they acquired lefties Justin Wilson and Aroldis Chapman to pitch out of the bullpen. Chapman, I anticipate, will not be the closer. He's been used more as a setup man the last couple of years, so that's probably the role the Red Sox are going to use him in. And Justin Wilson's just a bullpen piece that they can add to add some more left-handed pitching to their bullpen because they didn't really have a lot of left-handed pitching out of the pen in general in 2024. So I think the goal more was to just add somebody else who is a lefty that can come out of the pen. I don't have high expectations for him, but maybe he'll prove me wrong and we'll see. Then you have Brennan Bernardino, who will also pitch out of the pen. Had a tough season in 2024, but hoping for some bounce back things from him. Cooper Criswell, who got to start in 2024 because of Garrett Whitlock being injured. Whitlock was supposed to be a starter last year, and when he was unable to do so because of his injury, Cooper Criswell was that next man up, and he pitched pretty well out of the rotation. So we'll see what he can do to make a difference in the bullpen. Hunter Dobbins, who's a Red Sox top pitching prospect, is one to keep an eye on. Probably is going to start the year in AAA. I actually interviewed him for the podcast recently, and he spoke really highly of the Red Sox pitching staff as a whole. So he's somebody to look out for going into this season because when the inevitable happens and somebody gets injured, unfortunately, he's somebody to keep an eye on that could get his shot in the majors out of the bullpen this year because he's definitely impressed in his time in the Red Sox system. Luis Guerrero, who got some opportunities in the majors at the end of the season in 2024, he impressed also. He's somebody that I definitely want to see more of, somebody I'm looking forward to seeing in 2025, who I believe could be a key contributor for the Red Sox long term. So I'm hoping he gets more reps out of the bullpen moving into this season, as well as Zach Penrod, who also got a few opportunities in 2024 towards the end of the season and also had some impressive outings. So those two players in particular, I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more of this upcoming season. Then you have guys like Zach Kelly and Chris Murphy. Murphy was injured for a lot of the season last year. Zach Kelly struggled. He was a guy who was consistently put out there by the Red Sox, and I almost felt badly for him because with all the injuries the Red Sox had, Alex Cora was kind of forced to use the same guys over and over again out of the pen, and I just think Kelly was completely fatigued. I don't feel super confident in his ability to bounce back in 2025, but I'm hoping he can. But he's another pitcher who could see some time. Then you have guys on here like Luis Perales, who could get opportunities in 2025. Justin Slayton, who was no doubt one of the Red Sox best relievers in 2024, consistently pitched well. He did face an injury midway through the season, but I'm hoping he can come back and pitch and be just as dominant as he was heading into 2025, because that would be huge for this team. Then you have Greg Weisser and Josh Winkowski, both guys who struggled last year, hoping for bounce back years from them. Weisser especially, we really need to pitch well because he struggled a lot. Winkowski was kind of inconsistent and off and on. Hopefully those guys are able to provide some more value for this team as we try to navigate through a 2025 season that could go multiple ways for the Red Sox. So we'll have to see how things play out, but that is where the roster stands as of now. Still some questions to be answered heading into opening day, especially if the Red Sox do make a couple more moves to add to this roster. But all I know is that I am looking forward to having baseball back. It means nice weather and the best sport in the world. So Thank you for getting excited with me and tuning into Locked On Red Sox and making it your first listen today. Be sure to next check out Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan, aka Sully, who will keep you up to date on all things going on around the league. So if you want to stay up to date with other Major League Baseball teams, check out his show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Like I always say, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.